finally we get to meet Amanda.
Hi, lovely to meet you, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yay. So you just got back from a trip to Greece for a couple
I
of
did.
weeks and you're
Yeah.
looking all lovely and tan and hopefully relaxed. However, we were just discussing the fact that you come home from a vacation and it feels like all of a sudden you get hit with the to-do list.
Oh, absolutely. On holiday, I thought I'm going to maintain this lovely kind of Zen flow state where everything feels nice and relaxed. And you come home, and luckily, I've got a great team in place. So they've been kind of overseeing things and it's run like clockwork. But regardless, you still come home to an enormous to-do list. And suddenly it's like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
right
feel
back in there.
yeah, I feel that. I supposedly took a break over the summer, but I was really just catching up on my to-do list.
Yeah, you need it sometimes, don't you? You just need to hide behind closed doors
Oh
and get
yeah.
those things done. Yeah.
Exactly. So why don't, since many people might not know who you are, what you do, or how we ended up connected, it's mostly because we have the same kind of love and passion for supporting artists. But I would
Yes.
love for you to tell a little bit about, how you became an artist and then how you transitioned into being a coach.
Ah, right. Oh well, it's a long and interesting story, hopefully. But yeah, I'm a certified business mentor for artists, and basically I help artists sell more work on their terms, so that basically they get to make a full-time income doing what they love, which I'm really passionate about. Because from a very young age, I was always taught that art was definitely not a career option. And if you
Mhm.
chose it, you were destined to starve, basically. And at the age of 11, I went away to theatre school. So I got accepted into dance training school, went away there to train full time. So did that, always kind of painted and drew in the sidelines as, other people were rehearsing, and just love creating, but was always told absolutely not. It's either dance or it's, academic side of things, but definitely not art. So for years, kind of pushed it to one side and, had a career as a dancer, and then went on in later life to do a master's in business, which I loved. Yeah. And when I finished that, I then went on to open my first business, because I've had three multiple six-figure businesses that I've built from scratch, and most of them as a single mom. So there's been a fair amount of juggling going on. So first business, absolutely loved it. That was in retail. So I had my own shop and sold products, and it was amazing. But it just didn't feel quite aligned. It was an award-winning business, so it did really well. But you know when your heart is kind of saying it's good, but it's not a forever kind of thing. So I closed that, had a little period off where I had my son, and then opened a second business a little while later, which was Pilates and yoga studios, pretty much going back to dancing days.
Mm.
They went really well. They didn't at first. It was a slow growth, but when they picked up, they went very well. And I had two studios, kind of 15 team members, instructors, therapists, etc. And that was a service-based business. So I was teaching there, teaching courses and programs and workshops. And in that business, I massively burnt out. And I think we've probably all been there at one point or another, but everybody kind of wanted the owner of the business to teach, which was me. And so I opened more classes, more studios, built
Mm.
the timetable up, and then got to a stage where I was just totally burnt out. And I came to a point where I thought, I've got all of the material successes. I've got a big car and a beautiful house, all of these things. I'm really unhappy. And I thought, at first I thought, what's wrong with me? With all these things, you should be happy. And I realized that I just wasn't, again, following the calling that I had, what I was meant to be doing. So I spent a good period, I think it was about 8 or 9 months, where I put people in the studio to run it for me. And I just took some time out to say, what is it that makes me happy? What do I want to do? Why am I lost? Did loads of things like pottery, horse riding, reading clubs, all sorts of things. And eventually, you'll laugh at this bit, I went to an art class, but not because I thought that was going to be the answer,
Yeah.
but because I'd been single for such a long time at that point. And in my head, I thought, if I go to this art class, I'm going to meet this long-haired, brooding artist, and I'll go on a date. And that was honestly the reason for going to the art class. So I went along, turned up, and like everybody there was over 60, 65. So I thought, right, okay, he's not here. So I
Yeah.
might as well just sit down and paint. And the 2 hours literally disappeared. It was like I just sat down. It was amazing. So it kind of reignited something again. And I discovered basically that that's what I'd been missing. And a mentor of mine at the time said, well, that was obvious, you're so passionate about your art. And when you talk about it, you really light up. So yeah, that's what led me into this business. So I picked up my art again and just absolutely loved it. But I knew I didn't want to let go of the business side of things. So I kind of decided to do both things in tandem. And gosh, was it about, it was June 21 or July 21, I decided to sell those studios and just go all in and be an artist full time. And just never looked back. So there's two strands to my business now, my artwork and the business course for artists, helping them sell more work.
So I'm glad to hear that you sold them and didn't just let them close, because it seems like you built an amazing foundation. Your business acumen, obviously from years of doing it, from creating different types of businesses and business models. So I love the thought that you can build something and let it go and let someone else take over. And that's really beautiful.
Well, also, what I didn't realize the first two times, to be honest, and I reached the moment with both businesses, is they grew to such a level that they became almost unmanageable for me. And I didn't have anybody, any kind of mentor or family that were in business, ahead of me that could say, Amanda, actually, this is what you can do now you've reached this level. You can scale to here and put these things in place and keep hold. So with the first business, like I said, that was award winning. It was fantastic. And I just closed it down. The second business I did sell, but I reached the same point of fullness in this art business very quickly, much quicker, with it being the third one. And luckily I had mentors around me to say, fantastic, at that stage where you can put in these systems, pull in these team members, and you can just continue to grow. But it only comes with experience and hindsight, that, doesn't it?
Right. And shortening that path to understanding it by getting mentors that can help you.
Oh, that is critical. I always, and I don't know whether you were the same, I always thought I can do this myself.
Yes.
Like fiercely independent.
Yes.
Yeah. Why would I pay anybody else to do it?
The first decade, that's all I did was try to figure it out myself.
Yeah. YouTube videos, like free downloads, and you go round and round in circles. And, I had a lot of business experience, and I'm sure you did too. But you go around in circles following all of these different strategies and all of these jigsaw puzzles. And it's like, I always say, trying to do a jigsaw with all different pieces that don't fit and wondering why, it's not making a picture. But then, as soon as I took on mentors who were further ahead of me than, in the field I wanted to move forwards in, things just really escalated. They took off massively.
Yeah. So you said something about finding your passion, finding your thing, that calling. But I'm kind of wondering if we are kind of like the one true love. We know maybe there isn't such thing as a one true love, that many, many others could fill that spot and fill our heart. But could it be the same with our passion too, that in times and seasons of our life, as we change and we grow and we learn, that we might find a passion that we love, a calling, grow it, and then find ourselves a new person, a different person, and ready for the next adventure?
Yeah, I think that's really a really valid point. And there's a saying, isn't there, to do with people, and I think it's the same with business. They come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Yes. And I think it's the same with any kind of passion. And I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think if you have a period of 5-10 years where you're totally immersed in art, and then you think, do you know what, this is not for me anymore, I want to pursue something else, then that's fine. But I think a lot of us that are artists, it's just in there, isn't it? And unless you do it, you're unhappy. It's like an itch that needs scratching. And it's not to say that we carry on doing the same thing forever. I think we have to evolve and then push ourselves and innovate and try new things to excite us so it doesn't become stale.
Right. And I think if you're naturally drawn to being creative, you're always going to find some sort of creative path.
Yeah.
So whether, our art is meant to change and evolve, you look at even any of the famous artists and you see that there's different periods of time. Picasso in his blue period or pink period or whatever, like it changes, it evolves. We start in one place and we're eventually going to end up in a different place. And I think that goes with almost anything that we choose to do in life. I know when I became a mother, choosing to not make art anymore and instead focus in on the scrapbooking and craft making industry was in some ways incredibly helpful for me because it refined my ideas. It helped me understand materials. It definitely helped me understand composition in ways that I hadn't before. And I was still motivated to contribute to the greater of society. I didn't just do it for me. So eventually, though, that evolved and turned around again back to, okay, I need fine art again. And it's really interesting because in my path as finding myself as an artist, I came back into painting and soft pastel and painting on canvas, and eventually, and though this is years in the making, came full circle back to my love of paper again. And so I can see things are always going to evolve and change, and my materials keep changing, but my outlet is going to always be this consistent thread through my life of I need to create. And I think most humans are probably born creators. We just have to find what it is we want to create, whether it's, web design or science and new products, whatever, or for some of us, which is everyone probably listening right now, it's the need to create in like a pure art form. And you are a creator as a dancer. That's creation. So I do find it interesting that they're like, art isn't a great path for you to make money. And yet who would even say dance is a good path for making?
Well, and the shop I had was fashion. It was high-end fashion. So everything has been creative, but I've kind of danced around the outsides because I was too afraid to go for it. And things that at the time are seemingly unrelated, and you think you're jumping from one thing to another, when at one point in your life, and I think this happens for a lot of people, is they all come together and you go, that tapestry all makes sense now. So the experience with selling products and the experience with selling courses all come together to formulate what I'm doing now. And I couldn't have done it without those, those different experiences.
Exactly. And then of course your ability to understand business immediately translates in, okay, I need to make art. I need to make great art, but then how do I sell it? And then of course, understanding some selling principles, some marketing and selling principles are the same no matter what industry it is. Right?
And some are different.
You can implement that in a much more clear and decisive way.
100%. And always making art from a position of what you're really passionate about and then deciding how to sell it rather than thinking about what's going to sell and trying to create that. Because for me, that's a road to burnout. And just going back to what you said before about the sketchbooking and things, I think that's brilliant because we all think that everything is a direct path and it's very linear. And a lot of the time it's like night and day. We're not meant to be pushing all the time and creating fine art, finished pieces. Sometimes we have to kind of, I feel, go back into our shell a little bit and rest and replenish and rejuvenate and, do the collage and the cutting and sticking so that we can mentally process and rest. And then all the ideas germinate and we can come back out and kind of blossom, if you like. But I love that you did that as well. It's a really, I think a lot of people don't have the courage to do that, to stop and go, hang on a minute.
I had never really figured out and broken through and how to make art a career either. It was the same mystery to me as it is probably everybody else. And I was faced with the path of two ways to go. I was in my early 20s and I had moved out of my house the day I graduated high school. So I've been bouncing around. I've been trying everything. I'd worked retail. I'd taken some college classes. I followed boys to other states more than one time.
We've all done that.
and somehow I ended up in back in Northern California and on my own, happily on my own. But like, what do? I started because serial entrepreneur as well in one form or another. I started my own house cleaning business because I'm like, I'll have more freedom and I'll make more money. And so I was cleaning houses and I just was like, okay, this can't be it forever. And I looked at two paths, and this is the craziest thing. I looked at two paths. I had applied for art school, but I didn't have a loan, right? Or money for it. I could get a loan, but it was going to require me paying it back right away. And then I still had to figure out how to support myself. Or I could join the Army. And crazy thing is, I went and joined the Army. So I was staring at that path, still wanting to be an artist, still wanting to go to art school. Right? But I'm like, okay, but how am I ever going to make money doing this? So I chose for the adventure, and it did turn out to be an adventure in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Amazing.
So we are faced with these choices over and over again. And I think, that whatever we're meant to do may come back around many times until we finally say, this is it. I'm not going to ignore it anymore.
It does. It starts as a whisper, and then it's a little poke, and then it's a kind of punch in the shoulder, and then it's like, a full-on
Yeah.
shout until you
Yeah.
listen. But yeah, I've been at that crossroads so many times. And yeah, like you said, the fear of having to, especially, with that previous business that I sold, to go from that level of income. I had 2 children at the time and I was single. And I thought, I can't just let that go and be an artist, because you've got 2 children to bring up, and,
Right.
you have household bills and we have responsibilities, and you just think, I can't just go away and start painting and hope that food will put itself on the table.
Yeah. So in a need for responsibility, we sometimes snuff out the possibility that you can make an amazing income from
We
being an
really do.
artist. And I think that people are starting to understand that that's possible.
Yeah.
But you hit on something that was really important earlier in conversation, which is you need to make the art that you're passionate about first. I really believe that you need to get to a point of proficiency or excellency or mastery of some sort before I'm not saying you can't dabble at, but when oftentimes when artists say, why am I not selling? And I'm like, well, you've only been doing this for a year. So instead of focusing on the sellings, focus on the mastery of your craft and knowing who you are and finding your voice. And you did say one other thing that you said, and I've been in this place where don't look at what sells and make
Yes.
that. Make your art and you will find out. My father said this all the time. Art made with passion is going to find a home versus
Really,
soulless commercial work. And I'm not saying that you can't do that, but will you be happy in the long run? Will you feel like it's you?
that just gave me goosebumps. It really did.
Well, I did that for a while because I got trapped in this to where I live near the water in Annapolis. Everything is sailboats, crabs, oysters, beaches, cranes, whatever. It's like all, Annapolis themed. If you love that, great, whatever the locale is. If you live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and you want to paint buffalo, it makes sense. All right, fine, great. You're happy with that. I wasn't interested in doing that. So my appeasement to the crowds was to make some beach paintings. And oh my God, I got stuck in that for so long. And I will never paint another beach painting.
No.
Never say never, but my goal is to never paint another beach painting because I was doing it because it was commercial and it could sell, but it wasn't from my heart.
You can tell in a piece of work whether somebody's excited about it. You can tell when they're talking about it, whether it came from a place of passion or a place of necessity. But if we paint from what's inside, we create really strong work, or it's much stronger for sure. But if we look externally, what's going to sell? What are people telling me they want? It's a road to nowhere because people change all the time. One person's going to say, oh, can you paint portraits? You should paint portraits. And the next person says, oh, can you do my dog? You should be doing dog.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like you could get pulled in a million directions and never master anything. Whereas if you block all of that out and say, what do I want to do? Even if I didn't earn a penny from it, what would I make? Then, it's a really strong starting point.
Right. And a lot of times we don't even know what that is at the beginning. So go ahead and paint beaches and dogs and portraits and abstracts until you start falling into your own pattern. That makes sense when we're learning, just as in history, artists would study under another artist and copy the work. Really, honestly, so that's fine. In the beginning, that's totally expected. But eventually, by doing that enough, you're going to find your voice. You're going to figure out what colors work for you, what brush strokes work for you, without having to always rely on an outside source to give you input. I feel like you can get to that point where you don't need the outside source to always dictate. Now, I'm not saying we should ever go without good critiques will help us improve our work, but I'm like to always source like your next project based off of what someone else is doing and following a class, following a course. We start there, but eventually we grow into making our own work.
Definitely. And it's listening to those feelings as you're going through that exploratory stage to say, how did that feel? Did it excite me? Did the time pass like this? Did I get really frustrated? Was I bored? All of those like emotions are signposts really towards our own style, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. There were in the past few years, there were many times where I'm like, okay, I'm painting and I got to force myself to the end of this painting. And I'm more comfortable making stuff that lights me up. Like when I get to the point where I'm like, I can't wait to try the next thing, the next idea, I'm looking forward to painting. But there were many years where I'm like, all right, I'm painting because I said I'm an artist. but I don't
Yeah.
really love making art right now. So that's a really strange place to be in.
It is. And I don't think many people talk about that. And also, there's this expectation from the very fine art world, the traditional kind of fine art gallery, mainly male kind of orientated, from history, who have this expectation, and it's a little bit navel gazing. And sometimes having that pressure of having to have this really important kind of starting point for a collection that's quite either political or,
making a statement.
Big statement, a political statement, or whatever it may be. And that put pressure on me for a long time, and I couldn't go near the easel or near the studio because I was like, I don't know what I have to say. I was completely like a rabbit in headlights. And in the end, I just thought, oh, stuff it, just go in and paint what you want to paint, and ignore all of that advice. And then the joy came back again. But sometimes trying to fill those shoes just isn't right for people.
I think that just comes back to the same thing we've been saying. It's if you're taking too much input from the outside instead of your own intuition, you're not going to be led down the right path, right?
Yeah.
So do you find that the artists that you work with do better when they finally come into their own and they're making art that lights them up?
Massively. And they're really, I love this. The really amazing things is some of them are very clear when they come in. And the first couple of modules are designed to say, stop. Are you making the art that really lights you up, or are you doing it for somebody else? And I want to build a whole business on that foundation. And a few of them have gone through the program, and I've kind of looked and thought, I don't think that's what they're really passionate about. And some of them have even got towards the end and then gone, do you know what? This isn't it. I should have been more honest with myself. And a girl who went right back to the beginning and started again with her kind of passion project of wood carvings that were just so unique. You could tell her face when she came on the calls was excited. The work was brilliant. It was passionate. And she sold out of her first collection. And it's like, that. Also, certainly she sold a few pieces very quickly. I don't know whether she sold out. Some of them do. But she certainly sold a few pieces really very, very quickly. And it was like, of course you will, because you were excited about it. That excitement came across, people feel it. And I do love that, but it's very important. Yeah.
So she was making something else and then went back to the thing that she actually loved to do, and it changed everything.
Yeah. And I think we've got worksheets in the program that really help people dig deep, because sometimes I don't think we go deep enough into our why. And then if we do go deep enough, sometimes it uncovers something that we've been squashing through fear or whatever it may be. And she found it, and it was amazing to see. Yeah. A really cool moment.
I what's really crazy is we can find that thread goes all the way back to childhood.
Ooh.
And the things that I loved then, and even what inspires me now, I can see more of a connection. And so the more I'm true to myself, the more fun I'm having with it. And well, honestly, I haven't sold artwork in a long time, so maybe I'd have to have a little bit of advice from Amanda because I've really been so focused on the art courses and the coaching programs. And it's not that I don't sell my art, I just haven't chosen not to. But now I realize it's a huge shift for me to come back full circle to making work that I'm really passionate about. And I know that it makes a difference, because the last time I sold art, which was 2 years ago, sad to say, I sold out of everything, right?
Yeah.
So, but I know that I didn't sell out in the first good decade that I was selling art. Well, one, I wasn't very good yet, and I can look back and say, okay, now I understand.
But at the time, we thought it was amazing.
We did, and that's okay. To get your feet wet. And then also I had every year or every 6 months I was changing my voice again, and it may still be that way for a while, but I realize now that you don't find your style or your voice the first go around, or even maybe the fifth go around.
It just keeps evolving. But I think a lot of artists, the traditional way of selling art, either through galleries, and I love galleries, and nothing wrong with them at all. I think a good gallery is worth its weight in gold. And doing art shows it kind of passes responsibility to the gallery to sell your work. And obviously you only get 50% commission. And then the shows they're quite labor intensive and costly. And there's only so many you can do in a year without completely burning out. So it's reworking the model to say you don't have to leave your house actually to sell art. You can reach an international audience sell your work via your own website, keep a lot of the profits, and you can work in tandem with a gallery if you want to, and you can do shows. But if you have this recurrent income stream where you know you're waking up to inquiries and you're waking up to sales, it's a the possibilities of the internet now and the scope it offers are they're just endless. Yeah.
Right. And I think that maybe 2 decades ago when our good loving family was saying, maybe even more than 2 decades ago, we're saying
Don't think about it.
It was like 3 decades ago for me. But
I know when you start counting back, it's like, oh my God, that's longer than I thought.
It's been a while now. It's fine. It's something, I mean, like my main focus, even in high school, was art. So yes, this is always a path I've wanted to do, but the options were very limited until the internet. And even in the first decade of this century, people weren't really selling art online. It's just only in the last maybe 5 or 10 years that it's become completely normal, completely acceptable. People are comfortable with buying art without actually seeing it in person. And it's like revolutionized. It's democratized. That's the word I'm looking for. It's democratized being an artist. And so it's not just the exclusive people who can get into a gallery anymore.
No, that's it. And I remember the same pattern because in 2005, that's when I had the retail business. And I remember the same pattern then because people said, oh, you can't sell clothes online. People need to try them on, to feel them, and then it started to happen. And by goodness, it really took off. The same thing happened with art a few years ago. And I still, met people at shows saying you can't sell art online. People need to see it. They need to experience it in person. And the same thing is happening. But the online art market is growing exponentially. So yeah, to tap into that is critical, really.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing, though. I will say the beauty of working with a gallery, yes, they take 50%, but traditionally the way a gallery would work is I blissfully paint, I bring you the artwork, you find the customers, you sell it, I just show up for the nice grand opening. And that's it. I go back to being an artist and I don't have to actually do a whole lot of, maybe a little bookkeeping, maybe a little, proper framing or whatever, like, because I went through this with my father. Like I come from a family of artists, and the neighborhood I grew up in, I would see, the work that went behind, but you would show up and bring your art and that was it. You didn't have to do social media. You didn't have to have an email list. You didn't have to know how to market it. You didn't have to do any of that. And so there is a beauty in that. And if there are any that still do that, that's amazing. But I'm finding in the last decade, as I was because I did work with galleries for a while before I finally said enough of that, is they wanted you to come and bring the art and do all the work for the marketing and bring your people in and then sell it to your own people and still take 50%. And I was like, no, I'll just post it out of my own house. Like, that's ridiculous. So everything started changing where you still had to find your own people. And so there may be still some high-end galleries, I'm sure, New York and in Palm Springs and London and whatnot, you can just drop your stuff off and they'll find the sellers, but that's few and far between. All of the smaller galleries don't do that anymore.
No, and they're closing, a lot of them are closing down. And that's where I was saying good galleries are worth their weight in gold because they do take care of everything for you. And there are some artists out there who are just not born to self-represent. They don't want to do the marketing. They don't want to find customers. They have no interest. And if that's the case, 100% find a good gallery because they are fantastic. But there's nothing wrong with blending the two approaches either. And I recently worked with a gallery and I had to pay, obviously, to pack the artwork very substantially, to ship it quite a distance, which was a fortune, insure it. Then they sold, X amount of pieces and there were a couple remaining. So I had to pay for those to be shipped back over insured. So at the end of it, and I've heard this from a few other artists as well, at the end of these enormous prolific periods of creating, you've got a lot of expense. You sit and wait to see what's sold. And then sometimes, not always, you have to wait a very long time for the check or the money to come into your bank account. And it's very kind of boom or bust or feast or famine if that's your only income stream. But I think a lot of the really good galleries are quite accepting now of artists selling work themselves and via the galleries if it's a mutually beneficial relationship where the artist honors if a piece has been sold in the gallery, or where did you see it? Okay, if you sold it in the gallery, then the commission still goes to the gallery if you saw it there first. And it's just out of respect, isn't it?
And keeping your prices the same so that you're not undercutting the gallery, like all that. I understand all of that stuff that because I've done coaching for artists for selling, and that was like a really important part that I would watch them. They're like, okay, these didn't sell in my last show. Now you can get them for 50% off. And I'm like, you're not working with our gallery anymore.
Yeah.
No. That's not fair. Then everyone will just wait until the show's over and have you do a fire sale. Now, if I'm selling my own work and then I want to put it on sale, that's totally different. But when you're working with a gallery, you definitely have to respect that relationship.
Yeah. And if it works both ways, then it can be a really beautiful relationship. Right. But yeah, for me, I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I love having complete control of my website, my email list, and the direction and the decisions, what art I want to make, instead of being pigeonholed to produce a certain kind of work for a gallery.
That's a very good point, because what happens is the gallery comes to expect, and their customers come to expect, a very specific style, and it may come down to, we only want red trees from you. And then next thing you know,
why we became an artist, is it?
Right, I want to be able to not even make trees if I don't want to, right? Yes. So yeah, I love the freedom that being my own business owner gives me. And I think most artists now are so aware that we kind of have to do it ourselves, and we can be very successful if we do it ourselves, but then they get stuck and they like don't even know where to begin. In fact, I had someone ask me the other day, like I like to pose out like, what's your biggest challenge right now? Well, I can't, even when I posted on Instagram, I don't seem to be selling anything. And then I look and I'm like, well, you've only had 6 posts total this whole year.
And none of them mention anything that's for sale.
Right. And I'm like, so if you're not consistently showing up and being your own best advocate, then how are you supposed to build a business? So that's the key, is then we get into this. Okay, I love making art. I've decided that I want to make it as a living, not just for fun, not just as a hobby, which is totally acceptable. There are plenty of people who don't need to make money off of their art.
100%, that's great.
Right. But I'm going to guess that a lot of people who are listening right now, they're listening because they want to improve their odds of having a successful business. So let's just say most of our listeners want a successful.
Yeah, having a job where you get to do what you love every single day. I mean, there is nothing better than that, is there?
Right. So then what do you do? Are you ready? Do you even know? Like, that's the part. It's like, I love art. I see what other people are doing. I just don't know how to start a business doing that. And I'm assuming that with your passion to profit, that's what you teach.
Yeah. And it's about being very realistic as well. And I'm always very honest with people, because people say, I want to make an income from my art. And I make sure that they know it is hard work. And it doesn't just happen overnight. We see all these success stories on socials where it's like, oh, I made 30,000 in my first week of business. It does happen occasionally, but actually it's about being willing to fail, to get back up again, to be resilient, to be consistent, like you said, on socials, and to just be in it for the long haul. And for the Passion to Profit program, what I did is I broke it down into bite-sized chunks, because for me, I know there are memberships out there which are really fantastic, and I kind of was in a few to begin with, but my mind doesn't work like that. I like to know in sequence what needs to be done, because I do believe there are things that you have to do first before the next thing. For example, you don't want to go out and start attracting your ideal customer if your website isn't ready and your positioning isn't clear, or you don't have a social media presence, because they'll say to you, well, where can I see your work? And you don't have anything ready. So you've lost them. So I built it kind of step by step, to help them get crystal clear on their positioning, what they're about, what kind of business they want, and then build the assets, i.e., the photographs, the social media strategy, the website, the email list, and then implement the actual marketing plan. Because a lot of people think it just happens. They post and sales happen.
Yeah.
And actually,
no, that's not how it actually happens. Sorry to break your hearts, everyone. But you can't just build it and expect them to come. You actually have
to be like that. Yeah. So a lot of people think, and rightly so, I did as well, this is not a criticism, that you have your website and you turn it live, and all of a sudden the floodgates open and international sales come in. And it's not. I describe it as a car that needs fuel, and that the marketing strategy and your marketing plan is the fuel that goes into the car, otherwise it doesn't go anywhere. So we build marketing systems that a lot of them are automated, so that you don't have to spend all of your time answering emails, chasing customers, doing all the selling, because it's just not what we're born to do. So if we put systems in place that actually do a lot of that for us, and build our list on autopilot, then we can go into the studio, we can create, and we can show up for those really important connections and build there. So that's really what Passion into Profit is about. It's a step-by-step process about building a really robust, profitable business that stands the test of time, rather than, hey, go out and post in Facebook groups and you're going to get some sales. Yes, you will get some sales, but it's spammy and it's short-lived. And when other people start to do that, you'll have no business because it's expired. It's seen its sell-by date. So yeah.
I think that sell-by date was a few years ago.
And it's, it's so painful to see it still happening. And people say, well, if you approach, if you message 100 people, then at least 5 of them are going to buy from you. It's like, yes, but in the process, you're going to piss 95% of them off by just cold DMing them or spamming them in a Facebook group. And it's so, I just don't.
Well, it's better to create, like you said, systems that work for you, and then to create raving fans that you don't have to go knocking down their door. That's not sustainable at all. No.
And it's not pleasurable for our soul, is it, as an artist? No.
And this is what gives selling a bad name, because that's not really the ideal way to sell. This is something that I've been talking about a lot lately with my group and just in conversation is, think about a time where you bought something, you were so elated that you got to buy it.
Yeah.
Right? So selling doesn't have to be scammy or spammy or whatever. It can actually be serving and giving people exactly what they want. But I guess the key is to actually have the product, because a lot of artists don't realize you have to have a lot of product in order to sell a lot and make a lot of money. You can't just have 1 or 2 paintings. You have to have a lot of product, and you have to spend a lot of time creating and building relationships.
Yeah, you have to be visible, first of all, and then you have to, like you said, build relationships, nurture those relationships, have conversations with people, even though it's online and social, etc. And those conversations turn into connections, and then the connections turn into the sales. But yeah, it is.
There are a lot of steps to it, and we're just kind of glossing over the general idea. I will admit that, but it is, I think when it comes down to it, it's pretty much the same in every industry. Be really good at what you do. Oh, and as I've heard, be so good they can't ignore you. I don't remember where I've heard that quote. Be really good at what you do and continue to show up. You're in it for the long haul. You have to just keep showing up.
Yeah. And know what makes you unique.
Yeah.
And speak about that with passion and just be visible and be consistent. And, there's a lot more to it than that. It's a whole ecosystem.
Right.
But done the right way, there's no reason you can't make 5K, 10K, whatever kind of months. But aside from the money, the money's fantastic. It's more the creative freedom that once you've got sales coming in, you've got a big email list that's engaged. And so if you release an offer, a certain percentage is going to sell, then that kind of peace of mind is priceless for you to then go back into the studio and start creating work without any financial pressure.
Absolutely. What would you say is the biggest challenge for the customers that you serve, your clients? What do you see that's holding them back the most from taking that step into full financial freedom?
I think a lot of the time it's mindset. Because we don't believe that we're capable, or we think too small. And I see artists saying, oh, I'd love to make a few sales here and there, or to be represented by this gallery or whatever. And I think that's great, but that's a tiny piece of what's possible. Think much, much bigger, and you'll achieve so much more. But I think we hold ourselves back just because of the nature of the industry. Is
it possible that many creatives and artists don't even realize what's out there for them? I mean, part of it, maybe it's mindset, but maybe it's an unawareness of, I don't think that they understand how huge the industry is, and how many ways that you can make money as an artist, and how many people you can connect with, and how often businesses and designers and hotels and even, industry wide, there's just so many opportunities. I just don't think that a lot of times I think that the best that they're going to do is just post a few paintings on Instagram, and that's it.
Yeah. And one of the other things, actually, you've just reminded me, is I think one of the biggest blocks is we jump around too much.
Mhm.
So we see an artist having success with this. So we try a little bit of it and we dip our toes in. And then we see somebody else doing a workshop and, oh, well, maybe I should do a workshop, and we do that. And the truth is that creative brain again, isn't it? Jumping.
Yeah.
But the truth is we don't ever master anything or give it time to come to fruition. So we jump and jump and jump and jump and jump and then think, why is it not working? Instead of getting one.
Absolutely. It's the consistency of trying the same thing over again, seeing what worked, what didn't work, doing the debrief, looking at the numbers, and then doing it again. Great. The first time you launched, you didn't sell anything. Maybe you sold nothing. How about trying it again and then learning more techniques and doing it again? I've seen friends even do this, like, well, I put it out there and I didn't. And I'm like, why don't you follow the techniques that you know that work? You need this much of a runway. You need to have this many people paying attention. You need to talk about it this much. And you disappeared for 3 months and no one heard from you. And then you showed up and said, okay, I'm doing this thing. So it's in that consistency and that repeat, consistency, repeat. Whether it's you decide you want to do an art course, or you want to teach a workshop, or you want to be a coach, or you want to work with designers, or you want to get your work licensed, whatever it is, it's the repeat. And I was actually very guilty of that for so many years.
Oh, me too. I had so many coaches, and now I say, so I tried so many different methods initially, but now I say being a business, entrepreneur in the art field is a bit like being a mad scientist. You run a test, you look at the results, and then you go, right, okay, what worked, what didn't work, why? Let me try this. Let me tweak that phrase. Let me just do something differently and run it again. But too often, and it's such a shame, really talented artists try something once, they fail in their eyes, and they disappear. And they kind of tail between the legs. And it's so easy to do that because it's so close to our heart. Instead of going, right, hang on, what went wrong then? What could I do better next time? And I've even had artists run ads, which I never get them to run ads until the organic strategies are working. Right. It's a waste of money. And I had one student run ads, and she was like, oh, it didn't go very well. And I said, let me have a look at your results. And I looked and I was like, that was phenomenal. And you turned it off. That was gold. And she ran it, I think, for 3 days. And the results, like if she'd have kept it running for 2 weeks, there would have been sale after sale after sale. But she turned it off because it didn't happen instantly. And I think in the day of instant gratification, like we're in now, social media, dopamine, everything has to happen yesterday. We think that if we try something once and it doesn't work, we're a failure, or we shouldn't be doing this. And it's
absolutely.
I failed a million times.
Right.
Epically. Yeah, it's just a spilling streak, actually.
There was one time I thought that I would represent a bunch of other artists. I was working with a gallery. I was a gallery manager. I said, all right, I'm going to bring in a bunch of artists. I'm going to represent them, and I'm going to bring their portfolios to designers. I worked at that for like 6 months. If I had kept going after 2 or 3 years, it would have been an incredibly profitable business. Now, I will say sometimes you can get to a point and say, I don't think this is for me. Even if it was going well, I'm not going to continue to do this.
That's valid.
But there are also plenty of other things where it's like, okay, there was one time I was making this style of art and it just was wildly popular. So why 2 months later did I change styles again? And I loved making it. It wasn't that I didn't even love making it. Why? Because a gallery said, we're having a show and the theme is this. Will you make artwork for that? And it's like, oh, no, what I should say is this is the artwork I make. Does it fit with your theme?
Stand strong.
Right. So it's this consistency. Now I've learned that so much better since I've been coaching and teaching online, showing up and repeating a launch, repeating methods of selling. Those now I see and I consistently do over and over again. And now I'm not saying that I never change my mind, but it's in that repeat. And that's exactly the same thing I say. All right, great. You launched a course. It went this well. Now let's do it again. It's the second year you're doing it. Do it again and see, what did you learn from the last time? How many people were on your list? How many converted? So that means if that many people were on your list and that many people ended up buying by doing X, Y, and Z, next year you do X, Y, and Z, you just get more people on the list and then more people will buy.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, and this is one thing that artists are definitely not aware of, it is a numbers game a lot of the time. So if you, and this is being very flippant with the numbers, but if you get your post in front of 500 people on social media, let's say, and 100 of them, engage with the post, and a certain number of those join your email list, say it's 50 of them. From those 50, you can probably expect one sale if you make an offer. And so it's like, okay, so if I triple that and I get 150 through onto my email list, then potentially I've got pay sales.
Right.
And if I 10x it using Facebook ads when I know what I'm doing, hang on a minute, I've got X amount of sales. And once you've got the underlying system right, the pipe work with no leaks in it.
Exactly. You have to know that it converts before you put the fuel on the fire. Otherwise, you're putting money on something that doesn't work.
Just pouring it down the drain. That's it. And you can turn the tap on then and say, I'd like more customers. Facebook, can you go out and show me another 500,000, which is nothing, of my ideal customers who have this interest, this particular characteristic, and it goes out and does the work for you and brings you 500,000 of the right customers.
But that's advanced.
It is
for artists or for business or entrepreneurs. That's a little bit advanced. And so the part I want to reiterate is we test the systems first. We see that everything's in place. We're dialed in on our art. We have the website set up so that people are like, yes, I want to be on this email list. You're sending out emails that people actually want to read. You're continuing to get engagement. You know that when you do these things, a sale will happen. Yes. Once you're in that, then you just fuel up doing more of that. And then new things will come along, and maybe some things will die, like the whole idea of just go in and talk to people in Facebook groups and spam them. That doesn't work anymore. You'll get kicked right out of the Facebook group. It worked once before. Then TikTok came along and everyone's like, you got to make reels and TikToks and whatever. And that's actually becoming more difficult now to actually find. So there are certain techniques or strategies, if you will, or tactics that might have to change. But what stays the same is you're passionate about your art and your message, right?
Yeah. And also what stays the same is your website and your email list. They're your two assets, regardless of what kind of trendy kind of hack and fashionable thing might be working at the moment. As long as you are visible and you have a way of getting people into your community and you provide value to them, you'll make sales.
Absolutely. And that's it. That's the only part that you own out of all of it. Because it doesn't matter. The platforms change, the tactics change. One day it's Threads, the next day Twitter kills itself.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go to TikTok, but everyone's now on YouTube. And next thing you know, there's something called Lemon 8, and I refuse to do one more thing. And then what was old is new again. And now we're back on Pinterest. And it's like, okay, wait. What stays the same is getting people to my site and getting them on my email list. And actually providing something useful when I show up in their inbox. Boom. Yeah. That to me, my philosophy is everything we do is to get people closer to you so that you can communicate through your own channels.
I was going to say, and you're exactly right. If your messaging is on point and you're attracting your ideal customers rather than selling to them, they naturally kind of gravitate towards you. And then you don't have to rely on algorithms. People changing their priorities. Because, if your entire business is on Etsy, there's nothing wrong with Etsy. But if your entire business is on a third-party site, or you don't have a website and you're only selling on Instagram, I've known lots of artists like you have who've had 30, 50,000 followers, accounts closed. No reason.
Yeah. Well, that's why I ended up doing a pay them to play to verify my account so that won't happen. But what will happen is you can have 65,000 and your account just is like, boom, nothing's really happening because, and let's be honest, when we say the algorithms change, people's interests change.
Yes,
and
they get bored of
changes. And what you're putting out there changes. And maybe people who are on your account can't even be bothered with looking at Instagram. So those things I don't have. Whereas it might have been once upon a time, 30, 40, 50,000 people would see a post, and now maybe 5,000 will. But you know what happens when I send out an email? I can count on between 40 and 60% open rate every single time.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
And so when I know that reach is incredible. So it's about creating value and knowing that there's a reason why people want to be there on that inner circle.
Yeah, and they're more committed. Somebody on social is at arm's length. Somebody on your email list has said, yes, I want to be part of what you're offering. I'm a little bit closer. So it's a higher commitment. So yeah, I mean, for me, tomorrow, if my social media accounts disappeared, I would still have a business because of email list and the website. But yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in followers and vanity metrics and reels and latest trends and things. And actually, sometimes you have to stop and go, hang on a minute, who's directing my business? Is it reels? Is it, what was that platform? I can't remember, where people went into a room and I
Oh,
can't remember.
Clubhouse.
That's it,
Yeah.
Clubhouse. And everyone
Periscope,
was like, gotta get on
Clubhouse,
Clubhouse.
whatever, they come and they go. Yeah.
Just another whim. And I think to build a business on any of those is just, it's really dangerous. Yeah.
And I actually know many artists who are like, no, I don't have an email list. I do great. Every time I post something, I sell. And I'm like, how much are you selling? And this is the part that I also pause at. I'm like, fabulous, you've been selling. But are you still making a pauper's wage off your art when you could be making multiple six figures?
That's it. It's the opportunity lost, isn't it? You're
Right.
already selling on Instagram. You've proven you have product market fit. So take that now, make it safer by developing your own website and email list and amplify it by 10, 15, 20 times. And you've got a phenomenal business. So you can go on holiday with your family, you
Right.
get more time off, you've got freedom, you've got, you can do courses. It's,
Yeah,
it's
it's given me the ability to pay for my kids' college. They don't have any college debt. Thank you. In America, we still have to pay out the nose for that. Medical bills that come up, another like things that I actually worry about my parents as they're aging. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've been able to make a business that gives me all kinds of financial freedom to support my family and to, like you, go on holiday. And the way my mind has shifted since I've been able to build a business and find success in it. Yeah, once you learn these principles, once you're in it for the long haul, once you do the repeat processes, everything changes. Everything.
It really does. Because, like I said, I was a single mom for a long time. And even though I've had businesses, there have been periods where I have been really on the breadline, where it's like, okay, how are we going to make the bills this month kind of thing. Whereas, and that you can, especially as an artist, you can't create your best work from that kind of energetic stance. Whereas once you know all your bills are taken care of, you can create amazing work because there's no pressure and you can give back, you can do all sorts of things that you just can't possibly do when you don't have that flexibility to fall back on.
But you have to know that it's possible. And I think that's what we were starting this with. Yeah. That mindset of knowing what's possible for you. So I have a few single mothers in my coaching program, and it is so amazing to me to see the shift. And we've only been working for I think we're in month 5 now since this group has started with me. And one of them, she just launched an offer and she's like, I've made more now than I ever made in a whole year of teaching.
Amazing. And it's totally possible. Totally
and
doable.
So it's like when I look at them and I say, okay, now I know how important this is because you get to provide for you and your kids. You can finally take a holiday. You can finally have a sense of ownership and breathe. And it's like, it was just about me saying, you have talent. Now let's get that talent out there into the world.
Yeah. And stay focused. Don't lose hope when it doesn't happen instantly. Don't lose hope when you have your first failure, because I don't know a single entrepreneur out there that hasn't failed a gazillion times.
Oh, right.
But it's just getting back up and dusting yourself off and starting again. But it's the possibilities income-wise and lifestyle-wise they're really limitless. I think for artists that have a talent. Yeah, they're
limitless. Yeah. How exciting is that? So where can everyone find you, Amanda?
So you can find me on Instagram at Amanda Heath Art. And on there are some links in my bio. The actual website is Thriving Artist Business School, and it's shortened to TA- so a hyphen, a line, bs.com. And on there are lots of free resources. There's a free masterclass that introduces people to my kind of way of teaching and building that robust and profitable, sustainable business. And lots of things on there. Lots of exciting things to come as well. There's a new premium level program for established artists who are ready to scale and really, really fly and get more independence.
That's exciting because if there's one thing I absolutely believe, getting the mentorship so that you don't have to be spinning your wheels and taking the next 6 years trying to figure out how to make an income, you can be doing that this year. You just get the right help, right?
It's just getting the support, it's getting the roadmap and somebody there to say, when you say, I tried this and it went wrong, it's an external set of eyes to say, okay, I can see what happened. Let me help you get over that road bump a lot faster and a lot easier. And people think it's expensive, but it saves so much time and so much money and so much energy in the long run when you actually put your trust. I mean, the amount I've spent on mentors this year is, I don't even want to look, but I know it's an investment.
Right, because it takes you to the next level, right?
Really does. And it would take me 3 times as long to get there without them. So,
and that's how I felt. And I know that that's what our business model is, but honestly, when we see the results with our clients, it's like, it's exciting. And I'm very, very excited to
oh,
see.
it's the best feeling in the world when they start to get results. And it's like you've got the results for yourself. It's even more exciting because you can see that they're on the path then to what's possible for them. And it's just that very first stage. It's unbelievably exciting. Yeah.
All right. I like to end with one question that I ask everybody. What is your
Ooh.
big audacious dream?
Oh gosh, my big audacious dream. That's a good question. Wow. I feel like I never have huge ones. I have like the next step, but I just want, and I know this sounds possibly a little bit cheesy, but I want as many artists as possible to get out of the mindset of thinking it's not possible and staying in jobs that are soul-sucking and not rewarding, to have that flip, see what's possible and actually make it happen. For me, if I can leave that as a legacy, I helped 1,000 artists leave jobs that they hate and actually make a full-time income doing what they love, then yeah, my work is gone. That just feels really exciting.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It was such a great conversation today.
You know what? I've loved it. I've really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for having me.
Okay, till the next time. Bye.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye.